A lot of crypto companies are trying to navigate the regulatory headwinds, including our next guest. The SEC just approving Volt Equity's crypto stock ETF that aims to provide investors with exposure to publicly traded companies with exposure to Bitcoin. And the fund, which will not hold cryptocurrencies directly, will be listed on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker BTCR. Joining us now is Volt Equity CEO, Tad Park. Hi there, Tad. Thanks for coming onto the show. So we do know of other crypto ETFs out there by Kathy Wood. There's Block Coin as well. What makes Volt Equity's crypto ETF different from what's out there already?
Yeah, we're really excited about BTCR because this is the first time that the fund can focus specifically on Bitcoin in particular. So instead of having a lot of vague language, you notice that the first ETFs like Block, they had to say amplify, digital, like that kind of thing. And slowly the SEC has been allowing more and more specific language until now they actually allowed us to say Bitcoin and say that we focus on the Bitcoin industry. We actually mentioned Bitcoin over 100 times in the prospectus. So we're really excited that they let this through.
Tad, congratulations on the approval there. But one question I have has to do with the weightings. You have 80% related to Bitcoin related, 20% for traditional stocks, my understanding. So what's in that 20% that you define as traditional? And of that 80%, how are you allocating?
Yeah, so actually, at least a majority will be in these crypto related things. The reason why there's this other 20%, and there's actually a section allocated for tech in general, is mainly just for a regulatory thing. We wanted to hold companies like Coinbase and Tesla and Twitter, all of these companies that are actually leading the revolution. Twitter allowing for Lightning payments, Tesla holding over $1 billion in crypto, and all these other companies. But according to the SEC's definition, since they don't get the majority of their income from Bitcoin in particular, we actually had to include those clauses that we're investing in stocks, quote unquote. But it did allow us to make the portfolio that we wanted and include some of these big names that we think are leading the revolution.
So I think a lot of people are watching this and asking the big question, which is, is this a sign for the eventual approval of a Bitcoin ETF? So I guess my question is to that end, like, how difficult was this process? I mean, was this something that was like really challenging to get approval for, or did it go through rather smoothly?
Yeah, it was definitely a long process. We started way earlier this year in January, and it still took this long. Usually an ETF can come out within 3 months or less than 3 months, but this has been a long process and a long journey to get here. However, we're really excited that they approved this. I can't say too much on what was really frustrating about the process, because I do want the ability to launch ETFs in the future, but really glad that the SEC finally came and approved this ETF and allowed it to be such a Bitcoin-focused strategy.
So if I could just ask you to completely speculate, just based on your experience, there's some rumors that we may see a Bitcoin ETF as early as this year. Just judging from like however frustrating or not frustrating your experience was, what do you think is the likelihood of that?
So I think the likelihood of a coin-based Bitcoin ETF is pretty much zero. I think in a futures-based ETF, yes, it's possible. In terms of how much the markets would appreciate a futures-based ETF, that's to be seen. But they did launch a futures-based mutual fund, and that didn't seem to be quite what people were looking for. I'm really excited about BTCR because it actually has the industry. These are companies that are making Bitcoin. For example, Bitfarms can make a Bitcoin for $9,000 when Bitcoin's at $55,000 right now. So it's really exciting to have exposure to the industry. And but I think anything that is passed in the future is going to be good for Bitcoin. If there's a Bitcoin ETF, if there's any of these other ETFs that come out, all of it is bullish for Bitcoin because the regulatory framework is getting more and more open to Bitcoin.
So, Tad, getting back to the question asked before, when you talked about that 80-20 split, within that 80%, you have various companies that are related. Obviously, the R and BTC, I assume, and BTCR is Bitcoin related. How are you allocating that 80%? In terms of how much of it is going to mining, how much of it is going to companies that have a lot of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, transactions? What's going on here in terms of how are you seeing that overall market? Are you weighted one particular part of the sector versus another?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are influenced by the stock to flow model, and we do take a look at on-chain metrics and generally where we think that the crypto market is going. So we might at one point lean more on companies that hold just Bitcoin, for example, MicroStrategy, and at other times we might hold a lot of miners, but we can offset and kind of offload from that and have more other stocks like Tesla and Twitter if we think that we might be in the overbought territory. So we do a lot of analysis and kind of work within this basket to make sure that we can manage this for our investors.
All right, Tad, finally, do you have a sense of what volumes, what demographics are buying into this ETF, and then what's next for Volt Equity?
Yeah, well, we're really excited about the launch of this ETF. We've had an incredible amount of press regarding this. I think everybody's been waiting for just some news that the SEC is moving in this direction, and we're really glad that we can make it so easy to invest in 20 plus companies that represent the Bitcoin industry. And the easier it is for investors to get in and support the industry, the better it is for Bitcoin. So we're really excited about that. This is the most press interest that we've ever had for any of our ETFs. So we're really optimistic regarding volume. And if people want to know when we're launching, that'll be on voltequity.com, so people could sign up for that. Basically, the market makers were caught flat-footed because they didn't know that we were going to launch this ETF. They didn't know when it was going to be launched. So they didn't make a lot of the moves that they usually do. So that's why we don't know a firm launch date yet. But we're really glad that the first hurdle of passing the SEC has been passed, and we're really excited for the future.
Mm-hmm.